All right, so we are continuing with our series, Something Interesting in Genesis. We're on chapter 5. If you get something out of this video, make sure and subscribe to this channel. And be sure to leave a comment as well. Let me know you popped by. Let me know you got something out of this. And if you like this format, let me know that as well. So what we've been doing is just going through each chapter in the book of Genesis. And I read a bit and I share my thoughts. And the idea is that we would go through the entire book of Genesis together. All right, so Adam's descendants. So this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him, and blessed them and called their name Adam. In the day when they were created, and Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam, after he had begotten Seth, were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Now, there's going to be proponents of the idea that we will live longer today than we did hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago. Guys like Yuval Noah Harari, and I've read some of his books, the 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, Sapiens, and Homo Deus. And really, if you can get past the idea that this guy is full of himself, then you can actually read his book. But man, he's just, after he just keeps shoveling and shoveling stuff down your throat day in and day out when you're reading his books, it just, after a while, it just becomes too much. It's just like he's so full of himself, and he just wants you to have seconds. So in his book, he talks about the idea that we're able to live longer now than our ancestors. And when you see here in the book of Genesis, either you believe the Bible or you don't. So if you're a skeptic and you don't believe that Adam lived 930 years, you're going to fall in line with what these other people are teaching, and that is that we're actually living longer. And I'm here to say that we're not, I'm not a scientist, but I believe the Bible. We're actually living less than we did back in Adam's day, before the flood. We actually live less. Now, in another chapter, and I'll continue on here, but this is an important note. If we go over to Genesis chapter 6, we see this right here, verse 3. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, and yet his days shall be 120 years. So this is the max, unless God intervenes and allows that person to live longer than 120 years. This is our default mechanism in our DNA right now. It's been tweaked to live 120 years at the max. If you don't get stressed out, if you never got fired from a job, if you never got a divorce, if you never experienced any trauma in your life, you're going to live to 120 years. But if you have a poor diet, you don't exercise properly, all this kind of stuff, you're not going to live 120 years. I can promise you that. It'll be a miracle. So when you get guys like, what's his name? Yuval Noah Harari saying we actually live longer, I'm saying no, we actually don't live longer. Everybody seems to be getting cancer, all kinds of stuff going on. So, but here we see, because man was kicked out of the garden, Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, my theory, and this is just me, is that whenever you take of the tree of life, you live for 1,000 years. If you don't take of the tree of life, you're going to live less and less each generation. And we can see this As far as we know, Adam and Eve did not take of the tree of life. We don't know that for a fact, but it kind of looks like that the second they got kicked out of the garden, they started living less. So we can see that. Verse 5, Adam lived 930 years and he died. Seth lived 105 years, begat Enos, and Seth lived after he begot Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters. All the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And if we see Enos, he lived 905 years, and he died. And we see Canaan, not the Canaan, but a Canaan. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And then we get Mahalalel over here. And all the days of Mahalalel were 890 years and 5. 895 years, and he died. Jared, all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. A little bit better, lived longer than Adam. Enoch, right here, Enoch walked with God. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. He didn't die, though. God took him. And there is a book, I'm not sure if it's in the book of Jubilees or if it's in the book of Enoch. I think it's in the book of Jubilees, I believe, or maybe the book of Jasher, where one of the books says that Enoch was actually put inside the garden so he could record history of mankind and write everything down, all the major events and all this kind of stuff. So, I don't know, it could be a bit of a folklore or whatever, legend, a Jewish fairy tale, whatever it is. So I don't know if there's anything to that, but I know for sure that Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. And we see here Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he began Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. So this is the oldest person in the Bible, in the world, period. Nobody else has ever lived longer than Methuselah. So then we see Lamech down here, Lamech's descendants, and all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. So it's interesting. Lamech has a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, "This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed." So everyone knew about the curse from Adam and Eve getting kicked out. So we only have 10, I think it's like 10 generations to Noah. Let's count them here. We have Cain, so then we have right here, Adam's descendants. This is important. So we got Seth, 1. 2, Enos, 2, Canaan, 3, Mahalalel, 4, Jared, 5, Enoch, 6, Methuselah, 7, Lamech, 8, Noah, 9, Shem, 10. 10 generations. I apologize, this is all over the map. But we have Shem, that is the 10th generation. And Shem could have lived long enough to see Abraham, which is interesting. So really you have 10 generations of separation to Abraham, and they would have known the history of the Garden of Eden. That's my point. So this whole chapter 5 is basically giving us a snapshot of how long man has lived and how as each generation goes by, his lifespan gets shorter and shorter. And that's what we see throughout the book of Genesis, where people were not living past 120. In fact, later on, I think there's one priest that lived to 130 years, and I believe that's like in 2 Kings, but I don't remember the guy's name. But he was like the only person after I'd like to say after Moses that lived past 120, because Moses lived 120. Joshua, I believe, was 110. I think Joseph was 110 as well. Jacob was 130. So Jacob had a hard life. He didn't live a long time compared to his fathers, which is interesting. He even says that. And I think a lot of that had to do with Joseph being, he thought Joseph was killed. So I think that took a lot of years out of Jacob. And this is why I say it would be almost impossible for us today to live to 120 unless you live a perfect life. Perfect health style, no stress. The more stress you have in your life, it's almost like it shaves off days, months, years. And if you're addicted to something, same thing. We all know that. If you smoke a pack a day, 2 packs a day, 3 packs a day, you're basically shortening your lifespan. That's just a fact. Anyways, hopefully you got something out of it. We went a little bit on a tangent, but hopefully that just makes sense based on chapter 5 that we've read, that because of being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, we don't have access to the tree of life, and our destiny, basically, every man is destined to die once. That's what you can take away from this chapter. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you got something out of it. Feel free to comment, leave a comment, and subscribe. See you later.